And Shabbat Shalom, and welcome back, brothers and sisters. Welcome to the Parable of the Vineyard YouTube live stream. Tonight we're going to be talking about Paul, or Saul, however you like to call him. And, this is a topic that has been quite contentious in our community. I say our community. I'm talking about people that believe in the living Elohim, the Elohim of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Jacob, and believe in his true son, Yahusha, or you may call him Yeshua, no contention there. Believe in his true son, his lawful son, and have learned that we are to walk in his Torah to the best of our ability and understanding wherever we're at this point. And the Paul topic has been all over the place. And tonight is not really a teaching. Tonight is something, quite frankly, I owe you all, and I say you all, those who listen to this channel. You deserve transparency from me to know and understand where exactly I am on this topic, because it is an important topic. Whichever side of the fence that you sit on, it's important. And it's important you know where I'm at so that you can either continue to listen or you may have plenty of reasons to not listen to me moving forward. And either way, I'm fine with, as long as Yahweh's will is done. So tonight, again, not really a teaching. This is more of really my personal story, a little bit of my testimony and how I got to where I am today, and relating to Paul. Because Paul has been really intertwined with my walk, and you'll understand this when I explain to you the timeline of my understanding and where I was and where I am, and how it relates to Paul. That I'm going to share with you, and ultimately I'm going to share with you where I am today, which I finally believe I have peace from the Most High as to where I stand, and I'm going to share that with you today. And again, for you as my brother or sister who may or may not want to continue to listen to me going forward, you deserve that from me. And quite frankly, I owe to Justin. And I'll talk more about that a little bit later. So anyways, with that being said, let's start off with a quick prayer and ask the Most High to bless this conversation. Well, I guess it's going to be mostly one-sided. I may do question, and I may hang out with the chat a little bit later and maybe go over some things that pop up in the chat. Speaking of which, if you're in the chat, if you're here live, I ask you to please be fruitful. Again, this topic is probably the most contentious in this group of people, whatever we call it. I hate boxing us in with nomenclature with names, Torah observant community or Hebrew roots. I don't really associate with any of those terms because, well, that's a whole other subject. But please be fruitful. If you're unfruitful and you're rude, the moderators will remove you. We should be family regardless of whatever side we find ourselves on. So let that be known. Heavenly Father, O Yahweh, we come before you in Yahusha's name, and we just bless you and praise you for all the works of your hands. And we just ask you to be with us tonight and to help me to explain where I'm at as far as the understanding that I believe you've given me. And we just love you and bless you, and we praise you for this Shabbat in Yahusha's name. Amen and amen. So it is Shabbat, so that's a really good thing. I want to just read you really quickly one of my favorite passages for Shabbat, and then we'll move on. This is from Jubilees chapter 2, and starting at verse 18. And he gave us a great sign, the Shabbat, that we should work 6 days, but guard the Shabbat on the seventh day from all work. And all the angels of the presence and all the angels of sanctification, these two great classes, he has bidden us to guard the Sabbath with him in heaven and on earth. And he said unto us, Behold, I will separate unto myself a people from among all the peoples, and these shall guard the Shabbat, and I will sanctify them unto myself as my people, and will bless them, as I have sanctified the Shabbat, and do sanctify it unto myself. Even so will I bless them, and they shall be my people, and I will be their Elohim. And I have chosen the seed of Yaakov from amongst all that I have seen, and I have written him down as my firstborn son, and have sanctified him unto myself forever and ever. and I will teach them the Shabbat, that they may guard the Shabbat thereon from all work. And thus he created therein a sign in accordance with which they should guard the Shabbat with us on the seventh day, to eat and to drink and to bless him who has created all things, as he has blessed and sanctified unto himself a peculiar people above all peoples, and that they should guard the Shabbat together with us. So praise be to Yah for giving us the Shabbat. And as he says, it's and I think it's in Exodus 31, I think he says it's a sign between him and us. So praise be to him for that. So all right, let's get on with this. Again, this is really not a teaching. Some of it will be a study because I'm going to go over some verses and some of the things that I want to discuss. But in general, really, this is kind of me just putting myself out there as to where I'm at with Paul at this time. So if you're looking for direct teachings on the subject, there are going to be many, very much, if you're watching this as a recording, there's going to be much better videos out there that'll discuss this. It'll be more direct. It won't be as personal as this one. This is like a kind of a personal story. There's going to be much better teachings out there for or against Paul. So again, this is really just for the viewership, owing to them where I'm at. So this will also be hardly exhaustive. This is a topic that I've really studied really hard for, really on and off for 5-6 years now. So it brings me to where we are here. So again, this is a very contentious subject, much like the calendar. So let's be easy on each other, especially in the chat and in the comment section. Please be easy. We should be on the same team, no matter where we find ourselves. So timeline. So 2012 to 2014 is where Yah was waking me up, and 2012 to 2014 was kind of the culmination of my egregious lifestyle, and it's where he started calling me out of the world. Praise be to him. Just like Justin put a video out a couple years ago now. It's still one of my favorites. What was it? Thank God my life was ruined or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it said, what the title was, but it was a really short one. It was really good. But I can look back, and I agree that when I lost almost everything to the point where I was thinking about suicide, it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I had lived a pretty good life. I can look back and see where Yah had blessed me in every corner of my life, even when I was a sinner. I look back and I'm still in shock at how much his hand was in my life and how much he blessed me, even when I was a disgusting human being. And because I was successful, had a lot of money, kind of did whatever I wanted to do, when I lost everything, that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because I don't know that I would have ever woken up unless I had lost everything, because life was, in my eyes at that time, life was so good because I was living very successfully according to the world standards, nice cars, nice homes, climbed the career ladder or management ladder very quickly. Anyways, so 2012, 2014, that's where my life was in shambles, but he started rebuilding me at that point, and that's where I started my path back to him was found through conspiracy topics, learning about how evil this world was. I realized how true or how real Satan was, and so I said, therefore, I know how real God is. That's how I knew him at that point. And so I came back to him through that way. 2015 was a big year. That was probably the biggest year of growth and understanding for me. That's the year I learned about the biblical creation model, the Nephilim, fallen angels, the whole Genesis 6 package, the book of Enoch, which was huge, Jasher. Really thankful to like Rob Skiba was really instrumental for me in that year. Was starting to learn the commandments and that the Torah was relevant, which was great for me because, growing up a Jew and, learning about, even though there was a lot of rabbinic garbage in there, I knew the commandments were good. And, and then all of a sudden in Christianity, like that's all done away with. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't make any sense, but okay. Nevertheless, I believed in the Messiah. And so, any case, so I started learning a little bit about Torah, but I couldn't quite get into Torah because I'm like, why does Paul seem to be so against this? And At the time in 2015, I had a really neat job. I was a on the road salesman, and I was on the road I had like 5 to 6 hours of driving time per day, and really got a lot of scripture time in, a lot of YouTube time in. I was really learning a lot on the road, and what was interesting is, no coincidence, I'm sure, I ran into a lot of pastors that were potential clients, and it's obviously a big no-no to talk religion in the household, but I was so distraught as to this dichotomy of the law, Paul, what's going on here, and I kept asking the pastors, why don't we follow the law anymore? And I was always quoting Paul, and it never satisfied me, and it made me more inquisitive. So I started searching it out more. And again, really, Paul's words just really kept me from diving into the Torah at that point. And started searching for some videos. I ended up finding a channel called Trust in JC. I've come to know Laverne a little bit, and really like the guy. I think he's a really neat guy. And started watching his videos, and I quickly had grasped the idea that Paul may not have been a true apostle. And I got convicted of it, and anyways, so around 2015, I think late 2015, I was almost fully convinced that Paul was a false apostle, because you read all the scriptures and everything makes sense: the law, the Torah, the prophets, the writings. Then you get into the Gospels, even Messiah's words. Think not that I've come to destroy the law of the prophets. I'm not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, not one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the Torah, till all be fulfilled. And I'm like, well, heaven and earth hasn't passed, so the Torah hasn't passed. If you will enter into life, keep the commandments. Just so on and so forth. All his direct apostles' letters, all clear. I couldn't find any fault in 1 Peter, 2 Peter, the 3 letters of John, Jude. All of them telling the same thing. And then you get to Paul's letters, and it's like, you're just like, man, this is different. Like, I'm not getting it. And that's where I was, So in 2015, I felt called. I felt like Yah was just I want you to be in ministry, and I'm like, ministry, I'm still learning. I'm still learning a lot here, and nevertheless, anybody that's been called, I think they can all relate to the same story, that there's just, it's just inside you, and you can't just walk away from it. I think, even like Jonah tried, not saying that I'm not a prophet, but I'm saying just like Jonah was like trying to run away. He couldn't. You just can't. Even when you're like, me, no, why? It didn't work. I knew I couldn't set my heart on anything else other than studying his word day and night, and preparing to get into ministry. And truth be told, end of 2015, I was actually going to start this channel as preaching against Paul. That was going to be what I was going to focus on. And as I was getting tons of notes, I've got notebooks full. 2015 was an interesting year. It was about 6 months before I got that sales job. I had enough money saved up. I didn't have to work for about 6 months. So literally my job was, I got up like 7 in the morning, got my coffee started. I studied all day long until like 1 and 2 in the morning, went to bed, got back up, and just got notebooks full of just stuff. And anyways, so I don't want to spend too much time on this part. But anyways, so as I was getting ready to start the channel, Yah did something to me, and it was almost like an experience. And I at that time, I felt like he just said, no, Paul is true. Paul is true. And so I looked into it further. I found 119 Ministries, Pauline Paradox series. I once again just took notes after notes after notes after notes. And I felt comfortable with, hey, he's just totally misunderstood. It's something's wrong with me, not with Paul's letters, or something wrong with me. I just don't know enough. So I felt comfortable. I moved on. Paul was not a false apostle, yet I didn't really touch his letters very much, because I still just, I'm just going to be honest, I just didn't like them. they don't do the same thing to me when I read the Torah, the prophets, the writings, when I read Psalms, when I read Proverbs, when I read the Gospels, when I read the letters of Peter, John. It's just something different when I read Paul's letters, and maybe it's just a preference of mine. I just don't prefer his letters, but from 2016 to really even up to last year, I didn't quote him very often just because I just really didn't feel like he was necessary, and I just felt like in a lot of places he confused the matters to me. And why should I teach something that I'm just not comfortable with? So anyways, so the ministry forms, then Justin and I partner up early 2018, I think it was, doing live streams. And, from time to time, we had our discussions about Paul behind the scenes. And we both were like, some things were like really questionable. But in general, we both felt comfortable that, no, it's just he's misunderstood. We even did a 3-hour live stream about the book of Galatians. We went line by line. And we defended him to the T. And, we both put a lot of time into this. And, I think I've heard every single rebuttal to defend Paul. And I feel and this is not a prideful thing, I feel pretty versed in defending Paul on, almost every aspect, because really this topic is something I put a lot of time into, because it bothered me that it was possible that 13 books of the New Testament that there's something off with them. So, anyways, so we did that. We kept going, and then 2019 came, and something called the Paul paper. We ended up calling it the Paul paper in 2019. I can't remember. I think it might have been summer of 19. I think. A brother of ours, I'll leave his name out of it. He wrote a large PDF document about 50 reasons, 50 different issues with Paul, and so when this came out, I started reading through it, and a lot of the stuff that I had gone through back in 2015 resurfaced, and I felt comfortable with explaining a lot of them. There were some new things I had never seen before, and I was like, that's interesting. And so Justin read the paper, and he was like, bro, what do you think? And I'm like, unfortunately, my immediate reaction, I think, if I can be honest and fair, was a little prideful. It was kind of like I've been there and done that, bro. Paul's good. You'll see. Just test it. Watch the Pauline Paradox series again. You'll be good. You're good, bro. Paul's good. And once again, apology to Justin. I didn't take it seriously because I just felt like again, just watch the 119 Ministries Pauline Paradox series, and you'll be convinced back. You'll be good. And I just didn't give it the time and respect that it deserved at that time. Again, because I think I had a little bit of pride, because I was like, bro, I was back here in 2015. I've been there, done that. I tested Paul. He's good, and that was it. And I didn't take it seriously enough. And so again, my apologies to Justin on that one. So it kind of got tucked under the rug, and Justin and I, we talked about it a little bit here and there. And my words to Justin were, listen, whether Paul was true or not, the important thing is for us to teach people or guide people to the true Father, the living Elohim, to his true Son, which at that point I think I'd already put out the very highly contended, what ended up being contentious video about drawing a line in the sand between the true Messiah and the false version of Messiah that's being preached throughout the world, the lawless one, the one that did away with the law and stuff. So I told him, I'm like, that's the goal. I think, blasting Paul is, maybe not the wisest thing to do. And anyway, so it just, the issue got tucked under the rug, and we just didn't really talk about it much. And then fast forward to early 2020, specifically the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and Justin put out the video series, 50 reasons not to question or to not quote Paul ever again. And so, that was obviously a big shock to the community, and a lot of people, a group of people were instantly convicted, tossed Paul out. Some people dug in. There's, a lot of people that attacked him. I think in general, the community, whatever you want to call it, failed Justin, period, including myself. This is a legitimate brother that has brought a lot of, through Yah, of course, Yah, all praise to Yah, but Yah used this man to bring a lot of people into the truth, into the truther community, from the truther community into really a true saving faith. And the community just dumped all over his face and was just nasty and rude to him. I think the community failed him big time. There were a few people that were fruitful and handled it the right way and came to him in private and those kind of things. But at large, I think the community failed him. Regardless of your beliefs, just the attacks I saw were just unbelievable at some times. So, I had to take a step back. When that came out, it forced me to back into a position of really examining it again. I couldn't just tuck it under the rug and be like, "Oh, I'm good. I was there in 2015. This is not. There's nothing here." And so I took a step back and re-examined it, whether Paul is a true or false apostle. And the one thing that I really looked at is the fruits of his words, regardless of wherever you're at right now, for him, against him. This is a fact. The fruits of his words have produced lawlessness, and you can say, "Oh, it's not his fault," and I'd say just hang on. I'm going to fully explain myself, exactly where I'm at. I'm kind of just giving you a timeline of getting you to where I'm at now, and regardless if Paul is true or not, or regardless if it's his fault or not, the words that you can read in the KJV, ESV, whatever, they have produced lawlessness, whether it is Paul's fault or not. And let me add to that, it could have been, or probably exactly was Yahweh's will to do so, because after his disciples died off, the Roman Catholic Church took over almost right away. And in the book of Enoch, in the timeline, it says that after Messiah Yahusha rose, there would be an age of apostasy. And the words of apostasy would have to come from somewhere. So in a sense, I do believe that his words were, whether he wrote them that way or they were added to, or whether he was a false apostle, whatever the way his words, his letters are written right now, I think were done on purpose, and it was Yahweh's will. Just like it was his will for the Apocrypha to be taken out, the book of Enoch not to be included in the canon, Jasher, Jubilees, all these books. It wasn't like, men got one over on him and, we got you. Yeah, these books aren't in the public eye anymore. He told, even back in the book of Ezra, he told Ezra, some of these books are going to be, public for everybody to read, the wise and the unwise, and some of these books are going to be for the wise only, to be kept in secret. So we have to realize nothing gets past Yahweh. And so the lawlessness that was produced from his letters, that was his will. Just like, you can get mad at all the so-called elites in the world right now. Yah is using them like puppets, just like he used Pharaoh. You can get mad at Pharaoh and be like, "Oh, he didn't hearken to all the signs." Well, yeah, it said Yah hardened his heart so that he could be, so that his name would go throughout all the earth. So we have to realize he makes both the vessel of honor and the vessel of dishonor. So everything is according to his will. So Paul's letters being in the canon, the way they're written, I think was his will completely. And we'll touch more on that here in a little bit. So ever since Justin put out that video, I took a step back from Paul, because at the time, like I said, I'd have a verse here from him and a verse there from him, but really 95% of the scriptures I would put forth in a study were not Paul's letters, maybe 5%, maybe less. At that point, I removed Paul completely from my studies. Again, I don't even like calling whatever I do teachings. I call them studies. I removed them completely from my studies until I believe Yah had fully convinced me of one way or the other. And so over the last, what has it been, 10 months maybe, I went back to studying again. I looked at both sides. Of course, I watched all of Justin's videos. And I watched a lot of the rebuttal. I watched I think all of the rebuttals to his videos. Was very surprised, again, very surprised at the leaders in this community of how they handled it, laughing, mocking, words used like fool, and some of the things that Messiah says, you do this, you're going to be in great danger. Very concerning. But nevertheless, I studied it out with all my heart again because I know how important it was. And, I know my personal fear for Yah is extremely great. And I know what the word says about someone who puts themselves out there as a teacher. Again, I don't even call myself a teacher, but I know what I do influences people. So that is a teaching role. And, I take this very seriously, like my life depends on it seriously. And so all the while, when Justin went public, I got tons of emails and messages. Some were like, hey, Adam, when are you going to stand up for Paul? And then some others were like, hey, Adam, when are you going to stand up for Justin and, and share your feelings on Paul? Because all the while, even since 2015, I've had serious issues with Paul's letters. And I'm going to go over some of those here with you so you know what I'm talking about. And so I'm getting pressure from both sides, and I stayed silent. I stayed silent because I prayed, I fasted over this because I know how important this is, and I was really just waiting on Yah to make it clear for me. And I did not want to be swayed one way or the other. I didn't want to be swayed because of the pressure of, oh, Adam, you got to defend Paul, or, oh, Adam, you got to deny Paul, or, anything. I just didn't want to be swayed by man at all, but I wanted to be led by Yahweh only. So I just had to wait on Yah's timing, and here we are. And hopefully you'll understand why I've come to the conclusions that I've come to. So, in general, why would I want to be hasty for man's sake? I think when someone is in a teaching position and they are hastened by man to put something out, I think that can quickly turn into a disaster. And I did not want to fall into that trap myself, regardless of how much I got pressure from both sides. So, yeah, again, just wanted to be led by him, So, again, I witnessed fruit from both sides. And, unfortunately, in this case, it was hard to just judge based off of the fruits because both sides showed stinky fruit. And again, just really, really surprised by people just dumping on Justin. I think that was really out of place. I think a lot of people owe him an apology. If there's time, I want to read the Torah, the letter to the Torah community again. And no, Justin did not write that. A lot of you guys have asked me. He did not write that. A mutual brother of ours wrote it, and he wanted to remain anonymous, so we're going to keep it that way. So for the side that says, there's absolutely nothing wrong with Paul's letters. The Paul's letters are completely Holy Spirit breathed. They're to be looked at as scripture. I disagree. I disagree. Again, you can read, and this is where I want to be transparent, because if you think Paul's letters are infallible, I want you to know where I'm at, so you don't have to listen to me ever again. I owe you that. I do. But before you leave, let me fully explain exactly where I'm at, because I'm not anti-Paul, and I'm going to explain that as well. But for someone to say that there's nothing, that there's no substance to Justin's arguments, or anybody that's really in the anti-Paul side, I think you're fooling yourselves. Maybe I shouldn't use the word fool, because I just said that. You shouldn't. Maybe you're kidding yourselves. So I apologize for using that word. Maybe you're kidding yourselves, because his letters are not clear, and I'm going to go over what I'm talking about here in just a second. And a lot of people, disobeyed Paul's own admonition. People that were that are for Paul, they disobeyed Paul's own, admonition as to how to treat people that may have, fallen away from the truth. So 2 Timothy 2:24-26 says, "And the servant of Yahweh must not strive, but be gentle," which hardly any of them were. "Must be gentle, all men, apt to teach, patient, in meekness, instructing those that oppose themselves, if Elohim peradventure will give them repentance to the acknowledging of the truth, and that they may recover themselves out of the snare of the devil, who are taken captive by him at his will." So that would be the way I would handle it for those of you that want to put some rebukes out there. And the same goes for me. If you want to rebuke me, maybe heed some of Paul's words on how to do it. So I do have some issues with Paul's words, even to this day. And again, as I'm going to explain fully in a little bit, I'm not anti-Paul, and I want to explain exactly where my position is. This isn't like a double-minded position. I'm going to explain really where I'm at. Let me show you kind of just some of my issues here. And I know some of you out there are super wise, and you've put a lot of time into this too. And you're like, oh, there's an explanation for that and for that. Here's what I see from a bird's eye view, because really, when I took a time out for the last 10 months and I studied both sides, here's a lot of what I see. Like even like mainstream Christianity, what they do is they blind themselves to the Paul verses that uphold the Torah, because there's a lot of Paul's letters that uphold the Torah, and I totally agree. But there's a lot of parts of his letters that like mainstream Christianity, so they'll blind their eyes to the Paul is for Torah stuff, and all the stuff where Paul is apparently or directly against the Torah. They're like, see, no law, run under the law. Laws, nobody's justified by the law. We're just justified by belief, and that's it, and we just do what we want. And then you have the Torah side that's like, they kind of put some blinders up to some of the things where Paul's like, food sacrificed to idol, what's an idol? They kind of turn a blind eye to that and just focus on the stuff where Paul's like obviously for Torah, but they don't really touch the stuff where he's like, so I see both sides kind of blinding themselves where they want to blind themselves, because you can absolutely take either side of the position based off Paul's letters, Paul's own words. You can justify Torah off his words, and you can justify yourself not doing Torah based off his words. So let's take an example. Romans 2:11-13, "For there is no respect of persons with Elohim. For as many as have sinned without the Torah shall also perish without the Torah. And as many as have sinned in the Torah shall be judged by the Torah. Now listen, for not the hearers of the Torah are just before Elohim, but the doers of the Torah shall be justified." Hallelujah. I agree 100% with that. 100%. But then you go to the next chapter. I've already taken so much time, so let me just skip to it. First of all, here is chapter 3, verse 10. "As it is written, there is none righteous, no, not one. There is none that understandeth. There is none that seeketh after Elohim." This is quoting Psalm 14. This is talking about unbelievers. "They are all gone out of the way. They are together become unprofitable. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. Their throat is an open sepulchre. With their tongues they have used deceit." Okay. Anyways, so there he's quoting unbelievers. Now we know that what things soever the Torah saith, it saith to them who are under the Torah, that every mouth may be stopped, and all the world may become guilty before Elohim. Therefore, by the deeds of the Torah, there shall no flesh be justified in his sight, for by the Torah is the knowledge of sin. So here's a contradicting statement. You have here, it says, the doers of the Torah shall be justified, and then here it says, therefore, by the deeds of the Torah, there shall no flesh be justified in his sight, for by the Torah is the knowledge of sin. But now the righteousness of Elohim without the Torah is manifested, being witnessed by the Torah and the prophets. I don't agree with that at all. That is in direct contradiction to what Deuteronomy 6:25 says, "And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before Yahweh our Elohim as he commanded us." Now, what I do agree with is that Yahusha is the Torah. So if we believe in him and we follow him, we're believing in him, who is the Word, the Torah made flesh, and following and walking after he walked. But to be justified without the Torah, I don't agree with that. And these are some of the issues where it's like you can one side can focus on the Torah side can focus on the Romans 2 part, and then the modern day church can focus on the Romans 3 part, right? And then, of course, and then, you can get towards the end of chapter 3. Where is boasting then? It is excluded by what Torah of works? Nay, but of the Torah of faith. And we know that, anyway, I'll keep going. So therefore we conclude that a man is justified by faith without the deeds of the Torah. I think that's still in direct contradiction to Deuteronomy 6. And then, of course, you can wrap it all up. Do we then make void the Torah through faith? God, Elohim forbid. Yea, we establish the Torah. And this is the one I quoted all the time, because this is like a catch-all. You can say anything you want, but hey, Paul says it right here. Do we throw out the Torah? No, we establish the Torah. And so here it's like, you can justify either side, even just in this one chapter. And as far as a saving faith without works, again, this is where I go to, Peter's letters, John's letters, James' letter, Yaakov, James's letters, Jude's letters. They're very clear. James 2, verses 8 through 20. If you fulfill the royal Torah according to the scripture, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, you do well. But if you have respect to persons, you commit sin and are convicted of the Torah as transgressors. For whosoever shall keep the whole Torah and yet offend in one point, he is guilty of all. And that's, of course, why we need Messiah Yahushua, but that doesn't mean we walk away from the Torah. For he that said, do not commit adultery, also said also, do not kill. Now if thou commit no adultery, yet if thou kill, thou art become a transgressor of the Torah. So speak ye, and so do, as they that shall be judged by the Torah of liberty. For he shall have judgment without mercy, that hath showed no mercy, and mercy rejoiceth against judgment. So here we go. What doth it profit, my brethren, though a man say that he have faith and have not works? Can faith save him? If a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you say unto him, depart in peace, be warmed and filled, notwithstanding you give them not those things which are needful to the body, what doth it profit? Even so faith, if it hath not works, is dead, being alone. So I do not see what James is saying here being compatible with some of the things that apparently Paul says, and I'm going to get to what I mean by that. Yea, a man may say, thou hast faith, and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. Thou believest there is one Elohim, thou doest well. The devils also believe and tremble. But wilt thou know, O vain man, that faith without works is dead? And I agree. Galatians 3, 1 through 9, O foolish Galatians, who hath bewitched you that you should not obey the truth? Now, this is where I think, a lot of modern Christianity doesn't understand that obeying the truth is defined as the Torah, right? So I think a lot of them do have this backwards. I do believe in a lot of instances, Paul's letters are just absolutely misunderstood. If you understand, key words that were, used on purpose. Yahusha in his ministry, a lot of the times, used code words like truth and light, which we know are definitions of the Torah, and for people that don't understand that, when Yahusha talks about the truth and the light, they don't understand what he's saying. It goes right over the head. And he's obviously talking to Torah directly. So before whose eyes Yahusha hath been evidently set forth, crucified among you. This only would I learn of you, received ye the Spirit by the works of the Torah or by the hearing of faith? And that's true. I mean, we receive the Spirit by believing in Messiah Yahushua, or having faith in him, and I agree with that. Are you so foolish, having begun in the Spirit, ye are now made perfect by the flesh? Have ye suffered so many things in vain, if it yet be in vain? He therefore that ministereth to you in the Spirit and worketh miracles among you, doeth he it by the works of the Torah or by the hearing of faith? Even as Abraham believed Elohim, it was accounted to him for righteousness. Know ye therefore that they which are of faith, the same are the children of Abraham. And the scripture, foreseeing that Elohim would justly justify the heathen through faith, preached before the gospel unto Abraham, saying, in thee shall all nations be blessed. So then they which be of faith are blessed with the faithful Abraham. And then, of course, you have James or Yaakov here saying kind of the opposite about Abraham, is that he was justified by works and not faith only. So was not Abraham our father justified by works when he had offered Yitzchak his son upon the altar, seeing thou how faith wrought with his works, and by works with faith made perfect? And the scripture was fulfilled, which saith, Abraham believed Elohim, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of Elohim. You see then how that by works a man is justified, and not by faith only. I mean, this is again, what seems to be in direct opposition to what we read just a little while ago. And again, some of you are saying, "Oh, Adam, you just don't understand. You just don't have the Spirit. You just haven't studied this enough." Fine. Again, I'm not here for followers. I'm really not. I'm not here for numbers. I'm here to do what I believe the Most High is telling me to do and showing me. And if I'm wrong, pray for me. I really, really. But the words say what they say. And again, you can say, "Oh, that's not what he's really saying." Especially because he says such and such elsewhere. I agree. I totally agree. Again, with you. I'm with you. I'm not saying this in pride, but I'm just saying I know most of the rebuttals. I really, really do. I spent a lot of time on this because this is such an important topic, and I'm just here to tell you that these words say what they say, and the fruit that was born from them was born. You have how many countless millions or billions that was not circumcised, how many countless millions or billions that did not keep the commandments of the Most High because of what these words either directly said or people interpreted them to say, whether it was right or wrong. That is the fruit that was born from them. You can't find any of that in the Gospels. Yaakov's letters, James's letters, Peter's letters, Jude's letters, even in the book of Hebrews, which I don't think was written by Paul. It just seems like different language, but likewise also was not Rahab the harlot justified by works when she had received the messengers who had sent them out another way. For as the body without the Spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. And I completely agree. Let's see here. Oh, wait, actually there's more. I want to go over a couple other things. So I seem to have some issues with Corinthians, 1 Corinthians, Genesis 1:28, and Elohim blessed them, and Elohim said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. So one of the very first commandments was for us to be fruitful and multiply. Genesis 9:1 was right when they got off the boat. And Elohim blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth, right? Take wives, have sons and daughters. Genesis 9:7, and you be fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth and multiply therein. Leviticus 26:9, for I will have respect unto you and make you fruitful and multiply you and establish my covenant with you. Psalm 127:3-5, Lo, children are an heritage of Yahweh, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are the children of his youth. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gates. So having children is a really good thing. It's a blessing of Yah. I call it a commandment. I think it's a commandment, and I know some of us are in some situations where we couldn't have children. Whatever. Listen, I'm not getting on you. I'm just saying, I think in general, mankind is a commandment to take a wife, or women marry a husband and be fruitful and multiply, have children. As having 5 myself, I can tell you, I wouldn't have it any other way. I really wouldn't. 1 Corinthians 7:1-19. Now concerning the things whereof you wrote me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. I don't agree with that at all. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. So everybody would kind of come behind here and be like, oh, see, he's saying. But let's go back. He's saying it's better not to have a woman. It's better not to multiply. And again, what you're going to see here in this chapter is a lot of where the Catholic doctrine stemmed from. And really, I think where I'm at, I guess I'll just pause here for a second. Where I'm at is because Paul speaks for the Torah in so many places, and I love a lot of his letters. I'm going to share with you after this. After the bad, I'm going to share with you the good. There's a lot of his letters that I absolutely love. There's some part of his letters that you can't find anything else in the scriptures about. 1 Corinthians 13, man, boy, does that hit home, especially for times like right now. The fruit of the spirits in Galatians, the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians, heavily convicted me on a lot of things, especially self-control. You don't really get that specific terminology of self-control being evidence of the Spirit, in a lot of the places, which convicted me and helped me walk a tighter walk. But here's where I'm at. Either Paul was bipolar, or his letters were completely mangled, and I believe that they were mangled by the Catholic Church, because some of this doctrine I cannot reconcile. And for those of you that this is what I owe to you. I do not believe Paul's letters are infallible. I do believe Paul was a real man. I believe he was converted. I believe he converted a lot of people. I believe the stories about him in the book of Acts. I believe the book of Acts is true. Now, I think the book of Acts might have been tampered with too, because there's a lot of places in there where it's like, yeah, the Gentiles that are converted to belief, they don't have to keep the law, to keep the Torah. I don't agree with those kind of things. But in general, I think the history of the book of Acts, I believe, is true. So, like, I think it's in chapter 9 where it says that Saul was given the Ruach HaKodesh, and that he had fellowship with the apostles. I believe all that's true. I believe that his letters were mangled with. I believe they were added to. I believe the Catholic Church either wrote letters in his name or added to his letters. I'll expound on that a little bit more, but that's kind of where I'm at. So I need you to understand that I don't believe Paul's letters are infallible, and that everything that he teaches is from the Ruach HaKodesh. Things like, don't you know that it's a shame for a man to have long hair? Even nature teaches you. I don't agree with that at all. Look at the lion, look at the lion, the male lion. The male lion has the long mane, that Yahusha is the lion of the tribe of Yehuda. You look at Nazarites. You look at Samson. Samson a shame. What about Samuel, a lifetime Nazarite? Was his long hair shameful? And you can say, oh, well, he's not talking about Nazarites. Well, he just says, men with long hair, it's a shame unto them. Even though Absalom ended up becoming an evil man, it said that he had long hair and that he... what did it say? Did it say he was one of the most handsome people in the land or something like that? So if his long hair was a shame unto him, I don't know that would be true. Having short hair, really, I believe, is a kind of a Roman doctrine. And that's where I believe, things like that, I believe the letters were added to. Things like this, it's better for you not to touch a woman. I don't agree with that at all. We see I just gave you multiple witnesses that the Most High said it's... to be fruitful, multiply, and he said himself, it's not good for a man to be alone, and for a man not to touch a woman, that means for him to be alone. And so I just don't agree with this. So nevertheless, to avoid, okay, we actually read that. So verse 3: let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. The wife hath not power of her own body, but the husband. That's a little off to me. If I don't know, there's children that listen to this, but like if I want to and my wife doesn't, you're saying that my wife doesn't have the ability to say, no, honey, I'm tired, or, Likewise also the husband hath not power of his own body, but the wife. Defraud ye not one another, except it be with a consent for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your incontinency. But I speak this by permission and not of commandment. Now, so this, I hallelujah. And this you can tell you right here that, this is Paul's kind of own thoughts. But here he goes, and this is, again, you look at the Catholic Church where, the priests aren't to have a woman. Where do you think that came from? For I would that all men were even as myself, which is not to touch a woman, to be a single man. But every man hath his proper gift of Elohim, one after this manner and another after that. So Paul is saying here, or if whoever wrote this, I can't imagine, because I believe, Paul was a true convert and a true apostle. I believe that the Catholic Church added this doctrine in. I believe that my conclusion, essentially, if you want me to just cut to it, I believe the Catholic Church chose Paul as the patsy, the fall guy, essentially, for their doctrine, to mix their doctrine into Christianity and to get people away from the Torah and to follow their doctrines. And so I believe that we will see Paul in New Jerusalem. That is, of course, if we're found worthy. And he'll be like, do you see what they did with my letters? Like, yeah, it was pretty bad. I say, therefore, to the unmarried and to the widows, it is good for them if they abide even as I. But if they cannot contain, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn. And unto the married I command, not yet I, but unto the married I command, not yet I, but Yahweh, let not the wife depart from her husband, and if she depart, let her remain unmarried or be reconciled to her husband, and let not the husband put away his wife. But to the rest I speak, not Yahweh. If any brother hath a wife that believeth not, and she be pleased to dwell with him, let him not put her away. So, and this is kind of the back and forth in Paul's letters. It's like, there's a lot of us in this situation, probably a good portion, maybe even half of us that are trying to walk out Torah to the best of our ability. We have spouses that are not with us. Either they're lukewarm believers, not believers at all, or 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I can relate. I know. I love my wife very much. She's a really good woman, but she's just not there yet with me in Torah. And so this, I can understand this, because the scriptures are really kind of silent on this matter anywhere else. And that's why I'm saying it's like, I feel like a lot of what Paul writes is great and it's useful and it's good for doctrine, but then you have this mixing up of some stuff that I think is not good, period. So anyways, I'm already an hour in. There's so much to talk about. I want to talk about. Here we go. Okay. So this is really where I have a big issue. Verse 18, so is any man called being circumcised, let him not become uncircumcised, which actually is a thing, especially in the time of the Greeks, because if the Jews wanted to participate in the games, they did it naked, and so they would see if they were circumcised or not. There was a surgery that could be done to make yourselves uncircumcised. So is any called in uncircumcision, let him not be circumcised. You can say anything you want to say. Timothy was circumcised, so obviously Paul was for it. The fruit of this verse right here resulted in, I couldn't even imagine, millions, billions not being circumcised over the last 2,000 years, 1,900 years. So circumcision is nothing, and uncircumcision is nothing but the keeping of the commandments of Elohim, which circumcision is one of the commandments of Elohim. So if someone were to ask me, 1 Corinthians 7 or Genesis 17, Genesis 17 all day long. And I will establish my covenant between me and thy seed after thee and their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be an Elohim unto thee and to thy seed after thee. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan for an everlasting possession, and I will be their Elohim. And Elohim said unto Abraham, thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee and their generations. This is my covenant, which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man-child among you shall be circumcised. Right? And ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. This is a sign. This word token, it means sign. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations, he that is born in your house, or bought with money, any stranger which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house, and he that has bought with thy money, must needs be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. Not until Messiah came, and then it's done away with. No, everlasting. And the uncircumcised man-child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people, and he hath broken my covenant. So, the first thing people say, well, Adam, it's about the heart, the circumcision of the heart, and I agree with you fully that is what comes first, coming out of the world. That's something I can totally understand. If I were to just go around preaching circumcision, salvation by circumcision, well, no, obviously that's wrong. And, a lot of people say, well, that's what Paul was talking about. He was just preaching against the circumcision party. Well, that's not what he says. He says circumcision is nothing. And if you are called to be circumcised, stay uncircumcised. That's a lot different than salvation is not on circumcision. Now, if you were to say, you are to believe in Messiah first and have a circumcised heart and then be circumcised. Totally agree. And again, where I'm at is I don't believe Paul really wrote those letters. I believe that his letters were totally tampered with, totally mangled. Is just where I've arrived, because Yahweh has a court of law. And when you go into the seat of judgment, that's why Messiah says, judge not, lest you be judged, right? So you're going to judge Paul for false doctrine. Guess what? You are going to be right there in the judgment seat yourself. So, you don't have all your doctrine perfect, because I don't have all my doctrine perfect. And some of you may say, oh yeah, I can tell right now, the way you're talking about Paul's letters. Fine. I'll give you that. Maybe so. Maybe, I've still got a lot more to learn. Maybe I'm just a young pup and I've got a lot to learn. Maybe so. But when we want to sit around and accuse Paul of being the Antichrist or a false apostle or a false this or false that, I don't want any part of that. I really don't. It's the same reason why, there's a ton of ministries in this Torah community, whatever you want to call it, that I disagree with probably half the things they say. Do I feel called to expose them and to tear down? No, I don't at all. That doesn't really do anything for me. Can we call out false doctrine? Sure. And quite frankly, to me, that's how the book of James totally handles it. Some people say the book of James is a rebuttal to the book of Galatians. Maybe. And if it is, what does he do? Does he say Paul this, Paul that, Paul's this, Paul that? No, just calls out the doctrine. And quite frankly, that's where I'm at. I don't feel the need to condemn Paul, because what do you know? How do you know? How do you know his letters weren't mangled? How do you know that someone didn't write these letters and put Paul's names before them? How do you know that? He's not here for you to question. So the only thing that's here for you to question is doctrine. So where I'm at in this is, there's a lot of issues I have with Paul's letters, and I don't know what's been tampered with and what's not. So the only thing I can do is just combat the bad doctrine, as far as what I see as bad doctrine. And sure, again, we can gloss over everything and have an explanation for everything. But let's get back to it. His word says what they say. And, when the people in the lukewarm church read them and say, well, this says it right here. Not too long ago, I watched a brother of mine, one of his videos, and he's still in a lukewarm church. And he's like, he's got a lot of people from the Torah community posting like, hey bro, this is what the word says, follow the commandments, all this kind of stuff. He's like, I hear you, but I'm reading Paul's stuff right here. It says, this is the Bible. It says, this and this and this. I'm going to follow this because it says don't do that, And so it's like, Yah hasn't given them the eyes, right? You can't blame it on Paul. How many of us came to the truth of the Torah while we still believed, Paul was a true apostle? And some of us, a lot of us still believe he is. Again, I'm in that camp too. I don't believe, again, I think where I'm a little different is I believe he's a true apostle, but I believe his letters were totally manhandled. And I don't believe all of his letters are the inspired word of Elohim. 1 Corinthians 8. Now, as touching things offered unto idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffeth up, but charity or love edifies. And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing yet as he ought to know. But if any man love Elohim, the same is known of him. As concerning therefore the eating of those things that are offered in sacrifice unto idols, we know that an idol is nothing in the world, and that there is no other Elohim but one. For though there be that are called Elohim, whether in heaven or on earth, as there be many Elohim, as there be Elohim many, and lords many, but to us there is but one Elohim, the Father, of whom all are all things, and we in him, and one Adonai, Yahusha HaMashiach, by whom are all things, and we by him. Howbeit there is not in every man that knowledge, but for some with conscience of the idol, unto this hour eat it as a thing offered unto an idol, and their conscience being weak is defiled. So this more so doing with someone's conscience rather than what the Torah of Elohim says. But meat condemneth us not to Elohim, for neither if we eat are we the better, neither if we eat not are we the worse. So we can spin this however we'd like, but really this is kind of taking a soft stance on food sacrificed to idols, and I don't agree with it at all. I think we should be very careful with what we eat, and I think in a lot of cases, I think we should be very careful where our meat comes from. how it's being sacrificed, if it's being sacrificed the right way. Is the blood being let out? Is it being strangled? What do we know? We just go to the market, it's in this nice little pretty package, and we just take it home, and you know. But take heed lest any means that this liberty of yours become a stumbling block to them that are weak. So like he's calling it a freedom, really, kind of to eat as you please. Now I will say there's other passages where Paul's like, totally against food sacrificed to idols. And so that's why I'm like, this back and forth. Either he's, talks out of both sides of his mouth, or you've got different writers. You've got, the lying pen of the scribes. You've got the RCC all up in his business. Something's going on here. For if any man see thee which hast knowledge sit at meat in the idol's temple, shall not the conscience of him which is weak be emboldened to eat those things which are offered to idols? And through thy knowledge shall the weak brother perish for whom Mashiach died. But when ye so sin against the brethren and wound their weak conscience, ye sin against Mashiach. Wherefore, if meat make my brother to offend, I will eat no flesh while the world standeth, lest I make my brother to offend. So again, all about offense and conscience rather than what the Torah of Elohim says, or Messiah himself says, which Messiah is very tough on food sacrificed to idols. He's like, no way. Revelation 2:14, but I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Yashrael, to eat things sacrificed unto idols, and to commit fornication. So he's like, absolutely not. He's like, I have some things against you. This is what you're doing wrong. There's people there, you're suffering people there, or there's people there that are eating food sacrificed to idols. Here he is again, Revelation 2:20. Notwithstanding, I have a few things against you, because thou sufferest that woman Jezebel, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. So that's two witnesses from Messiah Yahusha saying that command that has not been done away with. That is a no-go situation. 1 Corinthians 10:23-29, all things are lawful for me. I don't agree with that at all. Murder is not lawful for me. Adultery is not lawful for me. Coveting is not lawful for me. Lying, stealing, breaking the Shabbat, dishonoring my mother and father, none of these things are lawful for me. Moving a landmark, even though we don't live in the land. I'm just saying there's a ton of things I can mention that are not lawful for me. So I don't agree with the statement that all things are lawful for me. But all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but all things edify not. Let no man seek his own, but every man another his wealth. Whatsoever is sold in the shambles that eat, asking no questions for conscience sake. I don't agree with that either. I think we absolutely need to take heed of what food we partake in, because the devil is crafty. And again, court of law. When you transgress the Torah, you give legal right. You give legal right to Hasatan and his kingdom to persecute, to bind, to do battle against you. So I think the enemy is very crafty. That's why you find it in so many foods. It's in almost every cheese out there you can imagine. It's in refried beans. It's in almost a lot of breads now. Pork is almost everywhere. And when you eat pork, you're transgressing the Torah and you open yourself up to the enemy, period. So I don't agree with, ask no questions for conscience sake. I believe that regardless of your conscience, I think we should be following the Torah of Elohim, which is to take heed to what we eat and put into our bodies. For the earth is Yahweh's and the fullness thereof. If any of them believe not bid you to a feast, and ye be disposed to go, whatsoever is set before you, eat, asking no questions for conscience sake. I don't agree with that either. If I offend somebody because I want to keep the commandments of the Most High, then it's going to happen. I look back at the book of Maccabees, and you had you had 7 children dismembered and boiled in boiling oil in front of their mother for refusing to eat a little piece of pork. If I get invited to a dinner and if I'm going to ask, I'm going to ask what it is because I care about the Most High, because I don't want to put an abomination in my mouth. But if any man say unto you, this is offered in sacrifice unto idols, eat not for his sake that showed it, and for conscience sake, for the earth is Yahweh's and the fullness thereof. So here he's like, don't eat, if you know it's sacrificed to idols, don't eat it. So, okay, bravo, I agree with that. Conscience, I say, not thine own, but of the other, for whom is my liberty judged by another man's conscience. So Anyways, so again, my conclusion with Paul is that I believe his letters were absolutely mangled. Here's an example. This is during the Westcott-Hort revision of the scriptures. This is in the ESV, Mark 7:15-19. There is nothing outside a person that by going into him can defile him, but the things that come out of a person are what defile him. And when he has entered the house and left the people, his disciples asked him about the parable, and he said to them, are you that without understanding? Do you not see that whatever goes into a person from the outside cannot defile him, since it enters not his heart but his stomach and is expelled? Now, the whole context of this whole thing is about washing your hands. It's not about eating unclean food, because we know the Messiah Yahushua was sinless. So for him to teach people that you can stuff your face with pork and shrimp and lobster and everything else that the Most High deemed not food is not what he was saying at all. He was talking about he was rebuking the Pharisees' added laws about hand washings and stuff like that, which, a lot of that rabbinic tradition stemmed from, I think it is Psalm 24, who shall ascend the hill of the Most High? He who has clean hands. And so you got to wash your hands, you got to scrub them, when it's obviously just talking about clean hands in a works nature, and how the works of your hands. Anyways, but here you can see, thus he declared all foods clean. So they completely added to his words, and which was not in the text, and they just straight up added to his words. So I think in a large fashion, this right here is what happened to Paul's letters, because like I said before, there's some things that are irreconcilable to me after I'd say five solid years of testing his stuff. And some of you may say, I've been reading it for 40 years, so you don't know what you're talking about, young pup. Maybe so. And again, if that's the case, pray for me that I might receive understanding. But when I read all the scriptures that says follow his commandments, follow his commandments, follow his commandments, follow his commandments, and then it's like, I can't go with it. I can't. I just can't do it. I'm responsible for what I put out there, because, whatever you want to call what I am, some people listen to the words that I say and are influenced by them. So I'm not going to teach any of that. That's the stuff I just read for you. You'll never see me teach any of that stuff. I can't do it. Just can't do it. And then, on the other hand, there's a lot of Paul's stuff that I love. This is the passage that actually part of my wake up. Romans 13:11-13, and knowing the time that now it is high time to wake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than we believed. The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. Let us walk honestly as in the day, not in rioting and drunkenness, not in chambering and wantonness, and not in strife and envying. This is a beautiful passage, and part of this was like an aha moment for me, that now it is high time to wake out of sleep, and I realized that I had been asleep almost all my life, and so this verse was very special to me, and woke me up. 1 Corinthians 13, man, it doesn't get much better than that. As far as really putting things in perspective, that, we can learn all that we can learn. We can keep Shabbat with the best of them. We can keep the Moedim with perfection. But if you're a jerk to other people, and you don't know how to love your fellow neighbor, just like Paul said, I think you're a clanging cymbal. And I think there's a lot of clanging cymbals out there, just by the fruits of their lips or their typing fingers out there. Ephesians 6, we know we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but powers and principalities and spiritual wickedness in high places, and so many different things. I mean, just what a good passage. What a great passage. It's like I said earlier, Galatians 5, the fruit of the Spirit. I mean, that's just good stuff. For me, I needed to learn self-control in a lot of ways, and that scripture helped me quite a bit. It helped me put away some of my addictions, and a lot of Paul's letters I really like. I really, really do. I read this for you earlier. Oh, why did I stop screen sharing? I read this for you earlier. 2 Timothy 2. Let me read this for you. 18-26, who concerning the truth have erred, which we know the truth is the Torah, saying that the resurrection is past already and overthrow the faith of some. Some of my best friends I mean, some of my favorite people in this walk, you know, believe the first and second resurrection have happened, you know, and these are some of the things where, you know, we can just agree to disagree. You know, I really believe that, and even with the Paul topic, for some people, Paul is everything. So when, you know, when anyone has questions his words, you know, it rocks your world, and you become angry and want to throw out accusations. And I know quite a few of you aren't going to listen to the channel moving forward. And again, that's why I'm putting this out there. This is long overdue, but again, I was wanting to wait on Yah's timing for all things, and I owe it to you for you to know that I still have, while I don't believe Paul is a false apostle, I'm not taking that stance. I'm not anti-Paul. I don't think that's, for me personally, that's not the direction I need to go. Again, not to say the same thing over and over, but I just really want you to understand where I'm at is the same reason why, like, since I already named them by name, let's take 119 Ministries, for example. We couldn't disagree more on some topics like Enoch and Jasher and Jubilees, and which is, as a lot of you know, is a big part of my ministry. We are probably at opposite ends of the spectrum. But I'm of the understanding that it doesn't matter. Those are my brothers. Even though we disagree, and hats off to them. You know, I reached out to them actually last week or 2 weeks ago because they had a teaching on the 144,000 or on the tabernacle that I wanted to include in the Revelation study. Those of you that were with me on Revelation 21 study, we just kind of ran out of time and I didn't share it. But I reached out to them, and they were very gracious. And they're like, "Oh yeah, of course, you can use the video," because I think they realize, you know, even though we find ourselves at odds on some topics, we're still brothers. We're still on the same team. And I think that has to be the same case for this Paul topic, is whether you believe he's a true apostle or not, or whether you think he's a true, and in my stance, I'm not going to call it being on the fence. I'm really not. I think he was a true apostle, but I cannot reconcile some of his words. And I know some of you are like, "Oh, Adam, you just got to watch this video." I'm not, and this is not in any way a prideful way. I've probably watched them all. I really have, because I put a lot of time into this. Some of his words I cannot reconcile. And so I have felt that Yah has led me to believe, Adam, you don't need to judge Paul. Paul was a true servant. He suffered more than probably all of us have, not probably, who of us alive right now have given our lives, you know, physically for Messiah. I believe that part, you know, the scriptures are true. I believe he suffered. I believe all of his adventures and being stoned and you know, all that kind of stuff, near dead. I think he's done more for the kingdom than any of us have. But I think he's falsely accused because I believe fully that his letters were added to. That's where I stand. That is where I stand on Paul. But going back, no matter where we find ourselves, I think we have to find a way to love each other regardless. And again, for those of you who are just joining us now, I think really the community did a huge disservice to Justin when he just came out and shared what he believed the Most High has put on his heart. And a lot of the things he said, I agree with, and I think you've seen that with some of the things I've said. Is that some of the things that Paul said are irreconcilable, in my opinion, and as far as where I'm at. But I won't go down the road of accusing him, of judging him, or condemning him. I won't do it. I will not do it, and I won't encourage that either. I don't think that's the right way to go. I won't condemn anybody that's gone down that road. I would just say a word of caution, because I think that's exactly what Yahusha says, "Judge not, lest you be judged." It's like, you want to point that finger? Listen, I think that finger will be pointed right back at you. And if your doctrine ain't perfect, just a word of caution. That's just all. That's where I'm at on that. So 2 Timothy 2:18-26. Nevertheless, the foundation of Elohim standeth sure, having this seal, Yahweh knoweth them that are his, and let everyone that nameth the name of Mashiach depart from iniquity, depart from lawlessness. This is pro Torah stuff. But in a great house there are not only vessels of gold and silver, but also of wood and of earth, and some to honor and some to dishonor. If a man therefore purge himself from these, iniquity, He shall be a vessel unto honor, sanctified, and meet for the master's use, and prepared unto every good work. Excuse me. Flee also youthful lusts, but follow righteousness, which we know Psalm 119, 142, his righteousness is everlasting righteousness, and his Torah is the truth. He uses it here and here. Paul was pro-Torah in a lot of places. Faith, charity, peace with them that call on Yahweh out of a pure heart, but foolish and unlearned questions avoid, knowing that they do gender strifes. And the servant of Yahweh must not strive. This little section here has really guided me on how to walk in love, but be gentle unto all men. And that's not even just believer. That's all men, and then even more so our own, which a lot of us have a really hard time grasping. Of being like, hey, you follow this calendar, I follow that calendar. I love you, bro. I'm just excited that you want to keep his Shabbat, and I'm excited that you want to keep his Passover, that we both want to keep his Passover. I agree. Let's agree to disagree, and just shake hands in love. Why can't it be like that? And now it's like, oh, you're false because you follow the moon, and you're following the moon like Islam, and I mean, it's just like. What have we learned? I don't think we, a lot of us have, some of us have not learned anything, if we can't even treat each other with respect. And I think, in a lot of ways, Yahweh has put these things out there where they can be looked at either way, just to test your little heart to see, are you going to slam your brother because they don't understand, the Sabbath like you do, or they don't understand how to count the days like you do, or whether Paul was true or false. You don't believe Paul is a true apostle and his letters are fully Holy Spirit breathed and every letter is true. Well, then you must not have the Holy Spirit. You just don't understand. You're not walking in the Spirit. You're just, you're walking in the flesh because you don't understand the Spirit, or vice versa. Oh, you think Paul's a true apostle, and you're blind. You don't know anything. You can't see that he's the Antichrist. I mean, it's like fisticuffs everywhere, and where even Paul himself says, and it's all over, the other apostles, the 12 apostles' writings, and Messiah himself about loving one another. We can certainly sharpen each other, and we can certainly edify each other, and even correction, but it needs to be done in love. So, and the servant of Yahweh must not strive, but be gentle unto all men, apt to teach, and patient, and meekness, instructing those that oppose themselves, if Elohim peradventure will give them repentance to the acknowledging of the truth, the Torah. That they may recover themselves out of the snare of the devil, who are taken captive by him at his will. So, again, I'm just kind of sharing with you some of my favorite stuff from Paul. There's a lot of stuff I really, really like that he has. So anyways, just wanted to share with you kind of how I see it on both sides. I had to write down some notes because I knew I could just go off on tangents and not talk about everything I want to talk about, which I still have a lot more. So again, I talked about how I disagree, and I use 119 Ministries for an example. So coming back full circle, so do I need to expose 119 Ministries because they don't believe the Book of Enoch like I do, or understand the Book of Enoch like I do, or at least how I think I understand it, or Jubilees, or Jasher, or any of those kind of things? No, I think we're on the same team. Do I think that their mission is to bring people to a saving faith of Messiah, being reconciled to the Father, and keeping the Torah to the best of their understanding? Yes, I do. So I think they're my brothers. Do I need to expose them? No, I don't think I do at all. If I were to, see him in person, and could we have a loving discussion on where we're on the topic? Sure, of course. Why not? And the same goes for other ministries. There's some other ministries that I totally disagree with on some things, but do I need to spend any time exposing them, tearing down? No, I don't. And maybe that's just my personal calling. Maybe some of you are Yahweh's personal exposers. That's just for me. That's not my deal. That's not what he's called me to do, personally. So, question I have: didn't most of us come to the truth of Torah realizing of faith and obedience without trashing Paul? Can we teach others? Asking the same question that I asked about 119, do I believe that we can bring people? What's our overall goal? The same thing: saving faith of believing the true Messiah, being reconciled to the Father through believing what Messiah did for us, and walking as he walked according to the Torah. Isn't that our overall goal of making disciples? And can we do that without trashing Paul? Absolutely. I'm a witness to say that, I came into all those things without trashing Paul. So is it our goal to tear down Paul, or is it the things I just mentioned before? And again, I can think we can do all this without tearing down Paul, in my opinion. In witnessing to others, do you think leading with Paul as a false apostle will plant the right seeds? Because I've seen the argument that, exposing Paul will bring people to truth. Maybe there's a few out there. I'll give them that. But I think in large, I think the best way to go, in my opinion, and again, I say my opinion, is to combat what Paul says, or what Paul allegedly says, or what was added to Paul's letters. Wouldn't it be best to combat those things with what Messiah said, and what the Torah says, and what the prophets say, and what the 12 apostles said, which all of those are everything I said is all pro Torah. Everything is all pro Torah. So in our witnessing to others and trying to bring them to the truth, like I can tell you, I tried with my family. Nobody even listened to a word I said, back in the day when I was talking about Paul in a negative way. In fact, it grew even more distance, and I think a lot of them are still hesitant of listening to anything I say because of some of the things I said back in 2015, as to trying to talk to them about keeping the commandments and whatnot. So, in my experience, that is not a very good tool for bringing people into the true faith, in my opinion, and just from my experience and what I've seen. What else did I say? So, and again, my witness to my thoughts on the matter is the book of James. I think the book of James hits on a lot of the things that I think were falsely attributed to Paul. James hits all those doctrines without tearing down Paul, without saying Paul by name, saying, you heard what Paul said, that that the faith only saves you. Don't you know, man, that faith without works is dead? He didn't say that. He just said, he just asked the question, can faith alone save you? And then he goes on to combat the doctrine. I think we should be the same way. I don't think that condemning Paul is the right way to go, in my opinion. So I guess I can start wrapping it up now, actually. So I have decided not to accuse Paul. I believe he may have been that he was a true apostle, but I believe his letters were added to. Ultimately, I believe the book of Acts to be a true account, and he suffered for Yahushua's sake, and I believe he is mine and your brother. Now, going forward, and this is where I also want to be very transparent of how I'm going to conduct this ministry going forward. A few weeks ago, I had kind of casually said some of these things in a Q&A session, or and I was talking about Paul and kind of where my thoughts were, and I made a statement that I'm going to start adding Paul's letters back into my teachings. After I said those words, they reverberated in my mind over and over and over and over again, and I feel like Yahweh was like, I don't know about that. If I can be truly honest, which not that I've been this whole time, if I can be completely blunt with you, the last 10 months of conducting studies, live streams, call them teachings if you want to, fine, it doesn't matter. I didn't include any of Paul's doctrine, and I have to say, I feel like my walk has been a lot less confusing, a lot more simple, and I don't know. I guess I've already hit on how I've seen my walk over the last 10 months, and I don't know that I'm going to be actually adding his letters back into my studies. I think I spoke at a turn. I think I was just so relieved to finally admit and say that I have issues with his letters, but I don't believe him to be a false apostle. I think I was so relieved to finally say that and put it out there that I just automatically thought that the next thing to do would just, go back to his letters and put them in. So perhaps maybe in my own study time, I might still, research them out. I might research his letters for the rest of my life. I don't know. But at this time, I do not believe that I'm going to be moving forward with his letters at this time. And the reason for that is the condition that those letters are in right now. I don't feel comfortable leading people to those because, and you can call me unlearned, you can call people that could go down that road unlearned, but I wouldn't want to lead someone that is new in the faith to those letters and them read those letters for what they say, regardless of however you want to gloss it over and say, the circumcision party or what, because if you take it for what they say what they say. I don't want to be responsible for leading someone to those letters that wouldn't, normally read those letters maybe and them go back into lawlessness because of, what those letters may or may not have said, or whether Paul wrote them or didn't write them. I don't know. That's not my battle. But I think I'm going to keep this ministry simple and for what I feel comfortable teaching and sharing. And at this time, that could change in the future. And if it changes in the future, I will give you notice so that if you believe my ministry will be tainted by having his letters involved back in them, I will give you plenty of notice so that you can stop listening way ahead of time and protect yourself. But at this time, I do not feel led to move forward with re-including his letters back in my studies, and I'm going to remain the way it's been the last 10 months. So if you've been listening to me the last 10 months, maybe you didn't even notice that I didn't quote Paul one time during that time of retesting him. Maybe you did. Maybe you were waiting for this day and hoping that I'd come around and add his letters back in. So again, just want to be transparent with you so that you can either continue to listen to me or you can have every reason to not listen to me anymore. Whatever that decision is, may Yahweh be glorified in everything. And again, I'm not here for followers. I'm not here for likes. I'm not here for subscribers. I'm here to do my job, which is what Yahweh has given me to do. And that's really what I need to do. And continue with my fear in him and to be led by him to the best of my understanding at all times. And that's where I'm at with that. Let's see. I'm just looking at my notes because I just want to make sure I covered most of the things I wanted to cover. So at the end of the day, perhaps I'm not smart enough for his letters. And I'm not saying that in a sassy way. But, that's the general accusation out there is you've got to be super smart to understand his letters. And I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not the most intelligent guy out there. I've never claimed to be. I think I'm just, an average guy that it says that the Torah of Yahweh makes wise the simple. So if there's any wisdom, it's because Yah has given it and because of obedience to his Torah. Yeah. So at this point, I guess at this time, I'm just not going to move forward with his letters. So again, you have ample reason not to listen to me anymore. I don't want to offend you anyway, so I want to give you warning, I guess, or notice. There's plenty of people that teach Paul out there, and there's plenty of people that teach him very well out there. And so if you need your Paul fix, there's plenty of good brothers out there that teach him pretty well. And so I'll defer to them. They can teach him, but I think I will abstain at this time because I've got to feel comfortable with it. Again, there's parts of Ephesians I love. There's parts of Romans I love. There's parts of Galatians I love. There's parts of Corinthians I love. But also in those books, there's parts that I cannot reconcile. So that's why I'm just going to put them to the side again. Or keep them to the side, I guess, because, yeah, so. Again, if I'm wrong, please pray for me, and that the Most High would open my eyes and see the truth, if what I have at this point isn't the truth. Of course, I do believe I do, otherwise I wouldn't come before you and talk about it today. So ultimately, it is the Spirit of the Most High that leads to truth or the lack thereof that allows one to be fooled. So let us all pray for one another instead of attacking and condemning, shaming, name-calling. And with that, I think I want to play for you the letter to the Torah community that some of you may have watched, some of you may not have watched. So what I'm going to do now, I guess my pouring my heart out there is done with. We're going to play the letter to the Torah community. It's about 15 minutes. After that, I may just kind of check the chat out for 15 minutes. I mean, I don't know. I haven't looked at the chat at all. It could be completely a mess and really unfruitful. I don't know. But I don't know. So again, this was not really a teaching. This was just kind of sharing with you where I'm at, and being transparent with you all, those of you that listen to this channel. So here's where our hearts, I think, should be. And this is written by a brother anonymously. And after that, I think I'm going to hang out with the chat for a few minutes. Then we'll sing a song. And then hopefully those of you that are late nighters, if you want to join me for the Torah portion, awesome Torah portion. It's week 16. It's Exodus 13 through 17. So we got the leaving Egypt, the crossing of the Red Sea, the Song of Moshe. So really awesome Torah portion. So hope you can join me tonight, but I'll see you here in a few minutes. Dear brothers and sisters in Messiah, I am writing you this brief letter in hopes that I may address a few things within the Torah community, or whatever title you want to give our little corner of the internet. I pray each of you will take the few minutes to listen to this and consider the words I have written. Many of us have come out of dispensational Christianity and have come to realize that many of the pastors we once sat under did not have all the answers for us. We have come to realize that we are Israel, and the Torah is for us to follow so far as we are able. We have learned many things and have come far in our journey to find the truth. Having to seek Yah and diligently study the scriptures for ourselves have caused each of us to have to walk away from doctrines we once held, or people or institutions we once trusted in. Now, in this search for truth, some have looked for it in places others refuse to. Some have accepted ideas or doctrines that others have not. We all have some differing ideas about things, and that's okay. I don't think any one of us would stand up and claim to have perfect doctrine or have all the answers. We're all still learning, still seeking, still growing, and doing the best we know how. We're never going to agree on every little thing, but at the end of the day, these differing ideas need not destroy our unity. There have been multiple subjects that have arisen in our community that have become hotly debated. How do we pronounce the names? What books should we hold as scripture? What calendar is the right one? These and dozens of other questions have arisen and been discussed and debated at length. Again, this is okay. We are supposed to sharpen one another and test our doctrines. What is not okay is the strife, the discord, the attacks, the divisions, and the animosity. We all have a desire to find the truth, and the natural extension of that is to share the truths that we have found so we can help one another come to a fuller understanding of the truth. We also want to do the inverse, to help protect others against things that we believe not to be true, or feel are dangerous to our walk. Again, this is okay, commendable even. That being said, we need to be very careful how we go about doing these things. In the past months, I have seen ministry rise against ministry, denouncing or attacking one another. Brothers and sisters fighting, accusations flying, one trying to expose another, hurt feelings, grudges, and a whole lot of pride. Brothers and sisters, you can have perfect doctrine, you can have the respect of your peers, you can have a far reach of influence and do and teach many good things, but if you are not able to treat your brothers and sisters in Messiah with love, you are missing the whole point of all of it. When our Messiah was asked what the greatest commandments were, he responded to love Yah with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love our neighbor as ourself. and that all the Torah and the prophets hang on these two commandments. Yah has shown us that each commandment given in the Torah falls into one or both of these categories, and at the center of the Torah, all that we believe, all that we speak, all that we do, we need to have love as the focal point. I don't think we have the proper understanding of just how important loving one another truly is, or a proper fear of Yah when we fail to do this. I want to bring some scripture out for your consideration. And we have known and believed the love that Elohim has for us. Elohim is love, and he who abides in love abides in Elohim, and Elohim in him. If someone says, I love Elohim, and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he who does not love his brother whom he has seen, how can he love Elohim whom he has not seen? And this commandment we have received from him, that he who loves Elohim must love his brother also. John says whoever says they love Yah but hates his brother is a liar. Now, to try to defend ourselves, we often say things like, I don't hate so-and-so, I just disagree with him. If this truly is the case, then there's no sin here. But how often do we say things like that while our actions say otherwise? How many are unwilling to associate with another in any capacity? How often do we cringe when we even hear the mention of another's name or ministry? How many videos have come out or comments have been posted for the world to see that condemn one another? How many have put out public statements that denounce or attack another? How many careless words have we spoken or typed to one another? I can think of specific comments made publicly in recent months by different ministries, denouncing others as dumb or unlearned. I would point you all back to our Master's words. You have heard that it was said of those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be in danger of the judgment. But I say to you that whoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whoever says to his brother, Raka, shall be in danger of the council. But whoever says, you fool, shall be in danger of hell fire. The Greek word there for fool is moros, and it means foolish, impious, godless, dull, or stupid. I'm not here to make specific accusations against anyone, but dear ones, if you have spoken to call another a fool, you are in a very dangerous place, and you need to repent for your statements and ask for forgiveness as publicly or privately as you originally made your statements. This goes, of course, for the individual, but doubly so for the ministries out there, as you have a farther-reaching impact, and people look to you as leaders in the community. James tells us that teachers will receive a stricter judgment, which should give any ministry pause to carefully consider their words before speaking them. At the time of my writing this, Yom Kippur is nearly upon us. It is a time of repentance, of afflicting our souls, and making sure we are right with the Most High. Rest assured that no amount of fasting, praying, worshiping, and anything that we can offer Him is as sweet as a sacrifice as humbling ourselves and making things right with our brothers. Once again, I want to point us back to the words of our Master. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go your way. First be reconciled to your brother and then come and offer your gift. We need to humble ourselves, swallow our pride, and reach out to the people who have both been hurt by us or that have hurt us. If we have hurt someone or owe an apology, do not hesitate, but reach out and make things right. If someone reaches out to apologize to you, forgive them without hesitation. If we will not forgive one another, Yah will not forgive us. We need to be willing to apologize, willing to forgive, and eager to make peace. James has much to say on this subject. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show by good conduct that his works are done in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter envy and self-seeking in your hearts, do not boast and lie against the truth. This wisdom does not descend from above, but is earthly, sensual, demonic. For where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. Now the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. Where do wars and fights come from among you? Do they not come from your desires for pleasure that war in your members? Therefore submit to Elohim. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to Elohim, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, you double-minded. Lament and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning, and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves in the sight of Yahweh, and he will lift you up. Do not speak evil of one another, brethren. He who speaks evil of a brother and judges his brother speaks evil of the Torah and judges the Torah. But if you judge the Torah, you are not a doer of the Torah, but a judge. There is one Torah giver who is able to save and to destroy. Who are you to judge another? Do you feel the need to speak out and warn people against different doctrines? Good. Do so in love and humility and gentleness. Do you disagree with one another? Fine, but disagree with love, humility, and gentleness. Let your zeal be tempered always with love, humility, gentleness, and wisdom. We are not all called to be in direct or frequent fellowship with one another, but we are called to love one another and to be gentle and patient with one another. A bit of distance between those with disagreements is natural, but if you begin to speak to or about a brother or sister, and you perceive in yourself a spirit of condescension, pride, mocking, strife, or bitterness, close your mouth, get on your knees, and ask Yah to help you tame your tongue, or typing fingers. But no man can tame the tongue. It is an unruly evil full of deadly poison. With it we bless our Elohim and Father, and with it we curse men who have been made in the similitude of Elohim. Out of the same mouth proceed blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not to be so. Were I to pull out all the scriptures pertaining to showing love to one another, or how important love is, or how dangerous it is to speak or act carelessly towards one another, you would be listening all day. But I will leave it at this. But the end of all things is at hand. Therefore, be serious and watchful in your prayers, and above all things, have fervent love for one another, for love will cover a multitude of sins. Until now, I have written as to general subjects and ideas, but I want to get very specific if you will indulge me for just a moment longer. One of the most divisive issues I myself have noticed within this community as of late is the question as to whether or not Paul was a true apostle. The separations and strife over this particular subject have been particularly vicious. I want to speak to this situation with Paul's own words. And I, brethren, could not speak to you as to spiritual people, but as to babes in Messiah. I fed you with milk and not with solid food, for until now you are not able to receive it. And even now you are still not able, for you are still carnal. For where there are envy, strife, and divisions among you, are you not carnal and behaving like mere men? For when one says, I am of Paul, or another, I am of Apollos, are you not carnal? Who then is Paul, and who is Apollos, but ministers through whom you believed, as Yahweh gave to each one? I planted, Apollos watered, but Elohim gave the increase. So then neither he who plants is anything, nor he who waters, but Elohim who gives the increase. Now I plead with you, brethren, by the name of our Adonai, Yahusha HaMashiach, that you all speak the same thing, and that there be no divisions among you, but that you be perfectly joined together in the same mind and in the same judgment. For it has been declared to me concerning you, my brethren, by those of Chloe's household, that there are contentions among you. Now I say this, that each of you says, I am of Paul, or I am of Apollos, or I am of Cephas, or I am of Messiah. Is Messiah divided? Was Paul crucified for you, or were you baptized in the name of Paul? If you read the book of Acts, or even just the above portions, it is clear to see that even in the early church, there were those who trusted and listened to Paul, and there were those who doubted him or outright rejected him. When the pro-Paul camp attacks and denounces others for their rejection of Paul, it is the very words of Paul himself penned that rebuke you. When those in the anti-Paul camp attack those who accept Paul's letters, it is the words of James, John, and Messiah himself that rebuke you. If this issue divides and causes strife and discord, we have only proved ourselves to be lacking in wisdom, love, and humility. I hope and pray, brothers and sisters, that you will consider my words and do some soul-searching and praying. The end is rapidly approaching. Let us not be servants that are found beating one another, but faithfully continuing in love with one another as a bride without spot or wrinkle, fit for our King. We can continue to seek truth. We can continue to test doctrines. We can continue our discussions. But in the words of Peter, above all things, let us love one another with a fervent love. I pray this letter finds each of you well, and I pray for grace, guidance, and blessing upon each of you in the name of the King of Kings, the Lion of the tribe of Yehudah, Yahusha. Sincerely and with love for you all, a fellow servant.